This next demo is going to be some additional tricks using the concept of shapes. And so we've started a new After Effects project calling it something like shapes. And then we are going to do our first comp, which we will open the comp menu, new composition. We are going to call this text repeater, something like that. Duplicate, echo, I don't care, but the idea is multiple times text. Okay. Text repeater, I already have one of those. I'm going to put a 2 at the end, and I'm going to hit OK, and yeah, this is all fine. Okay. So again, be patient with me. I'm reverse engineering these sort of demo ones that I did with guidance. All right, so the first thing we did, I guess I should go to my actual written directions. That'd probably be the wise thing to do. People coming, going, losing internet connection. Awesome. Okay, so we are going to create a text layer. So I would type a word. I did animate. You can do something else if you want. I'm going to maybe do echo because that's kind of cute. And I'm going to move it to close to center. If I want to move the anchor point, I can hold down the Alt key. Nope. I can hold down the Control key. Nope. None of these things are true. Awesome. Yes. I'm holding down Alt and Command on a Mac. And that I assume would be Alt and Control on a PC. And then I'm clicking on the square with the arrows pointing out to the outside of it up here, double clicking with those buttons held down, and it should auto center my anchor point. It did it, and then it undid it. Really? Okay, fine. I just undid it until it went back to being where I wanted it. I don't want to stare at bright red, so I'm going to change this to something else. Purple sounds fun to me. And take the stroke off and just do a pure text. And maybe change my font. Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's one of those words that loses its meaning when you see it in big, all caps. Doesn't even read. It's like an abbreviation of something. Okay, now, so this is a text layer, and I picked a color, and all is right in the world. The only thing is, we need it to be not just a text layer if we want to do some tricks to it. We need it to be a shape layer. So I am going to convert it to be a shape layer by doing something good. Where? Right click on the layer under create shapes from text. Right click on the layer. Under the create portion, so I'm right clicking on the echo layer, which is my text layer. So I right clicked, it brought up a whole bunch of choices. Then I'm going to the subcategory here that says create, and I am going to create shapes from text. All right. Now, what it's just done is it created a shape layer. It knows that I'm trying to do something tricky, so it actually turned off the text layer because I don't need it right now. It assumes since I've converted this to be a separate kind of layer, then I'm going to be wanting to focus on it. So it kind of did me a favor, which is nice. All right, real quick, Ashley's system's having trouble. Nico, type with the text tool and nothing shows up. Yes, usually it's black text. That's usually the trick. Yes, Perry is pointing it out to you. If the last thing you typed was in black and you're on a black background, you would look like nothing's there. But as soon as you change your font color, everything will come back. That's usually what it's doing. If it's an empty project, Desmond's going to show you. Okay, Desmond. You want to annotate, go for it. This is a cool trick, right? Is it working? Is it not going to work? Okay, maybe not. All right, I'm closing it down. Okay, so back to it. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's if it's the only layer you're doing and you've got it set to a color on the right hand side, it should work. Because opacity hasn't been adjusted yet. Nothing's been adjusted. Okay, and Ashley's back, which is cool. Desmond didn't mean to click the thing, so that's fine. Okay, so it keeps the text, but it turns it off. Now, we want to add a repeater to this layer. I can't get to the repeater controls unless I open the layer. As soon as I open the little collapsible thing here in the bottom left-hand corner, then you'll notice that there is an add animation, which is kind of this animate menu is the little white circle with a triangle pointing to the right as if it's a play button is what it looks like to most people. If I click on that, then all the sort of animated capabilities that come along with this pop up. So we want to add a certain kind of animator. We are going to add what did I say? A repeater. That's what I said. A repeater. Now, what it's done is it's created layers essentially for me embedded in here, which is kind of cool. So we're going to open the repeater little caret here so that we can see the controls for it. And you can sort of see why, when you get into doing this kind of work, why he put his timeline on the right-hand side of frame. That took a little while for me to get used to watching him. But when you're doing most of your building down here, I can see the logic of wanting a more vertical space to work with. You don't have to do that, but I just thought I'd point it out that that kind of was a little weird, but I see why, because you're not focused on setting a bunch of keyframes in your timeline over here. As he said, he did all those animations usually with 2 keyframes. That's insane. So all I have done is take the original text layer, I right-clicked on it, went to create, changed it to create shapes from text, and when I do that, it turned off the original text layer. It turned off the regular text layer and made a new shape version of it. And that has a slightly different look to it. You can see there's sort of an outline around the words. So I didn't add that. It's actually happening from the create shapes from text process. It's giving you an outline because these are shapes now, not a simple font. So it's trying to indicate that to you. So that's why they look so different. I was thrown off by the sort of outline around it too when I first saw it. So don't be surprised. I had a question about that. Okay, so moving on. What are we going to do next? So we open the repeater thing and we'll notice we have some controls here. The first is copies. So right now I have 3 copies of echo. If I crank that number up, it echoes on and on and on and on and on. Let's do, say, 5-ish, just to start. So it's already made multiple things that are layers that I don't have to manage, but that are animatable, which is kind of cool. The X position will allow me to move this. So if I go to offset, I can actually take it from left to right. That's kind of cool. You can change whether it's on top of the original layer or below it, which is doing below by default. So I need to open my transform controls. So we opened repeater and that gave us strictly sort of repeater type controls. How many copies and starting from where? And is it behind basically or after or in front of the layer that we started with? Then I went to transform and I opened that and I have a whole bunch more controls down here. Now I can do things that I'm much more accustomed to like position, and I can say, well, I want to stagger these like stair steps, or I want to stack them purely. So I'm just taking the y-axis and moving it way over. which is kind of cool. And if I do the x-axis, I can realign things by setting it back to 0. So basically, the x was already set to a number before I started dragging everything down because it's trying to show you that it made copies. So you can understand that if it didn't throw off one of these variables, we would just see echo and there'd be a whole bunch behind them and we wouldn't know. So what it chooses to do is take the X position and move it 100 clicks over. And that is essentially why you're seeing them and you can tell that something's happened. So in a sense, if you don't like that, if that's not what you're looking for, you can open the position controls, go to the X, set it back to 0. That's what it would have looked like. And I would have been confused because I didn't think anything happened. But then I can say, okay, yeah, I want it directly, but I want to echo it down maybe. Just because that's kind of cool, right? So now it's echoing down. That's kind of cool. We are going to change the color across these echoes. Now, if I, so what do I mean by that? I'm going to go back to the add. Whoops, I want to ellipse. I'm going to go back to add and I'm going to change the fill. Okay, so we're adding an animated fill. That added it down here on the bottom. And I can go open that little caret next to fill and under composite, and I can basically say, which do I want here? Above for full replace color. Okay, yeah. So if it's on below, which it is by default, I can basically say, oh, I want it to change color across these. And I should be able to change them. Sorry, this is where I start to get a little confused. All right. So so these are objects now. So I guess the focus here, since I can't get it to work, is if you don't like your color, your best way to change it now is to do it here. And that was part of this point. Because I think, yeah, you can't change the character font color anymore because these are not characters anymore. These are shapes. So that was kind of important. Yes, so fill color can still be changed just by doing the fill and setting it to below or above, and that will change it to whatever new color you've selected. There is a way to fade it though, and I may have to reverse engineer my example because obviously that's what's happening here, and I like it. So I'll come back to that when we're doing questions and I'll see if I can figure it out. Okay, so you'll notice also that it does give you that sort of weird outline. I need to get into here, into the controls. Transform, I want it to move. So you can do the normal position change as an animated thing. So if I want it to start, I do the original one. Is that what I do? What is animating over here? Let me see. Offset. Offset is what's animating. All right, let's go back to this. Offset is in my repeater. So as you drag your offset, it will animate up and down. So if you want it to fall from the top, then you need, and these numbers are really touchy because my words are so thick. It's basically doing one character increment at a time. So if I get it close to the top and I go -5, okay, well, what if I type in -6? We'll see if that's right, -6. Now it gives you the outline as a reference. So this is not going to show up when I click off this layer. This is just a guide of what all your echoing is coming from. So if I just got all the echoed stuff off the frame at the top by playing with numbers till I got to -6, I can say that's my starting keyframe. Now I'm going to drag it to positive until it's gone. You're as close to gone. That's 1. 0 is not it. So we're going to go 3. Gotta actually click on it each time, which is annoying. Oh, 3 is gone. Cool. The only thing is, I didn't set another keyframe. So I'm undoing. See, I forget. So I had the first one set at the beginning. I set a keyframe, first keyframe with the stopwatch there with it to -6. Now I'm going to go say 2 seconds over. I'm going to manually set another keyframe, and then my magic number was 3, I believe. So I'm going to hit 3, and I don't see it because now it's on the bottom. And if I go back, you'll see it fall through the scene like that. And again, it's showing me the reference outline. That will go away as soon as I click on anything else. So you notice I just clicked, I closed it up and clicked off the effect. And now when I play it, it actually falls from the top and there's no weird echoey, there's no outline in the middle. It's a smooth animation. And I literally set 2 keyframes and duplicated the thing. So this could be a bunch of dots. This could be a bunch of circles, hearts, whatever. You could go crazy with it. You could stagger the sort of distance between things, but it's all built off of one original text layer. And that is how I did it. Now, the only thing I did differently on this one, well, obviously the gradient, which I really would like to figure that out. So let me see what I can come up with here. How did I get that to work? Fill, 0, transform? No. Fill rule, non-zero winding. Just going to double check these settings and see what I have different. Somebody have a question? Fill rule, even odd. Non-zero winding is the one I have. And I'm going to set it to below. Those all look the original color to me. Normal, color, 100%. The settings look the same. Don't know what I did to make the magic gradient color.
In your other comp, I see that you have 2 animation layer, like 2 text layer.
Yeah, these are other things that I'm doing at the bottom here. Yeah, those are something
Okay.
else. But yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Good guess. But yeah, I'll show you what I'm doing with those. So I liked the fact that on our example, when I was on this, it gave you that sort of outline version. I thought that was kind of cool. So I actually, on mine, went in and made a layer that mimicked that. So I made an outline version and I put it behind it. So the stuff starts falling from the top, and when it has hit enough of the screen, then it reveals that outline version behind it, and then the text falls away, and we're left with only the outline one. So in a sense, I just duped my original layer and uh, made it so that it was not solid inside. That's not actually black inside. You can actually tell it to make something transparent when you're doing a text layer, and that is the little box with the X through it or the line through it is an option when you're selecting a color. It's underneath. So if I went and turned it off for this layer, I turned it off, will it let me? If I pick a color, will it let me? Yep, there you go. So it's filling, but I said, no, don't fill with anything, make it hollow. And then I did leave a little bit of a edge what's called a stroke layer. So I did put one of those on. So in a sense, I just hid the fact that it pops on behind the stuff as it fell. I could have faded it up and made it even more elegant, but I didn't. So yeah, so that's extra. You don't have to do that. That was just me going, I kind of like how that looked. But the idea of echoing these is cool. Now, here's the thing. This is like super, super elementary. You're welcome to leave it like this, but I want to show you, look at what happens if I go into the repeater and I change the scale. So all I did was change the scale under the repeater controls, and now it comes at you. And it's all the copies coming at me, which is pretty freaking neat. I could change rotation over time. And that's all keyframeable, right? So I might decide that the scale starts a certain way, but by the end is doing something different. So maybe I scale it back. And when I animate it, it does something like a roller coaster and it all crashes into the camera. I don't know. But the point is, all of these are keyframeable variables. You can rotate. So now all my copies come flying in. Super gaudy and tacky. So when you do your project, if you choose to use this as sort of the foundation, there's a whole lot of different ways you could fly stuff in and make it interesting. Just try to make it so that it's clear you did something beyond just giving me back what we did in class. All right. There's also start opacity and end opacity. So maybe it starts at 0. That's it. That's how I did it. So the fill is outside of opacity. So by setting a different opacity at the beginning, you basically fade on the filled version. So it starts off its original color and then it slowly fills in the other color to be whatever I want. So if I want this to be, be more obvious, then I'll do red. So now it starts off purple, but as the animation plays out or as the distance between these plays out, it changes to red. Cool. So yes, it is start opacity and end opacity. That was how I did it. And although it doesn't happen in the fill area, which is kind of weird, it's actually happening in the transform area. So how these are stacked and the order in which they're stacked, I guess really can matter because you could argue that it's taking a filled element and it's spreading it out across an effect that was happening a layer up. These aren't legitimate layers though, right? These are just sort of stages. There's probably another term for it because they're not layers. Stages in the effect stack. So that was how I did it. All right. So all kinds of crazy repeater stuff. These can be words. These could be shapes, elements, periods, dots, whatever. Do something cool with it and life will be good. I'm going to stop recording now and take questions.
My text doesn't have the gradient when I change the start opacity to 0%.